I'm Luis Scott, managing partner of Bader Scott Injury Lawyers, one of the fastest growing law firms in the country, and I'm also the co-founder of 8-Figure Firm Consulting. I've successfully built multiple companies by focusing on leadership, operations, and culture. Using these principles, my companies have generated close to $100 million in revenue. But before any of this success, I started my legal career as a receptionist, and I worked my way up to becoming managing partner. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with leaders and entrepreneurs who have had the guts to step out on their own and the courage to face adversity. They share with us their tips for achievement, the challenges they have faced, and the glory of success. I welcome you to the Guts and Glory Show. All right, Luis Scott here, host of the Guts and Glory Show. I feature top leaders who share the obstacles and challenges of leadership, the guts it takes to succeed, and the glory of success. Today, you will hear another inspiring interview from international entrepreneur Mogill, who has built one of the most successful companies in the legal industry. But before we get started and I introduce my guest, I want to mention a sponsor message from 8-Figure Firm Consulting. 8-Figure Firm Consulting helps law firms take their business from 7 to 8 figures by keeping lawyers from doing the work they hate and letting them focus on making the impacts they love. I remember when I started my career, and Michael, you work with a lot of law firms, so you could attest to this being the case. I was working 70, 80 hours a week. I literally had no idea how to build a business or how to do anything. And we're going to talk a little bit about your company and how you help lawyers make this big impact. And that's what we do at 8-Figure Firm as well. We do it more from an operational standpoint, and we work with them to help them develop a business that works for them instead of them working for the business. So if you want to turn your law firm into a law business, go to 8figurefirm.com. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing today's guest. He's an international best-selling author of The Game-Changing Attorney, owner of and CEO of Chris Video, host of the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, and my good friend, Michael Mogill. Michael, welcome to the Guts and Glory Show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's just get started. When I was preparing your intro, I realized I couldn't fit it all in one page because there's like so many accolades, so many things that I could talk about. But you know what? I said, let him talk about his story. So for the people listening to the show, tell us a little bit more about you and about your business and what you do and how you help law firms around the country.
Yeah, I mean, how far back do we want to go?
Give us the good stuff.
So, I guess really at its core, just a background about me, my family and I immigrated from Eastern Europe to the U.S. I came here when I was 4 years old. It was my brother and I, my parents and grandparents. They didn't speak the language. We had $500 to our name. And, we grew up, I think we great parents. My parents have always been very supportive. They valued education and things like that, but we did not have much. So in the financial sense, right? So grew up in a lot of low income communities and, but my parents, like I said, they always pushed us and, they came here because it was really to create opportunity for my brother and I. So, I took that with tremendous responsibility. Now going to school and going to college, I was originally pre-med, took the MCAT, got into med school. And I think that's like the prescribed path for most like immigrant children, right? So it's like doctor or lawyer, right. Entrepreneur is always very like, it's foreign, right? It's like, this is before Shark Tank and everything like that. So, when you hear entrepreneur, people don't really understand what that is or what that means. And, it wasn't very cool. At the onset, it's basically meant, unemployable, right? I think that's pretty much right. At the core of it. But I was very entrepreneurial from an early age. My first company, I think at age 13, it was a web design company, and my mom would let our clients in like through the front door, and like I'd sit and create like their websites, and even going back before that, I'm trading cards and like those pogs, and I remember getting in trouble at school because in elementary school the teachers saw that as gambling, and they'd call my parents in, and they're like, right. What's he doing? But to me, I was just like, yeah, this is an entrepreneurial thing to do. It just makes sense, right? So ultimately, I guess I decided not to go to medical school. Just wasn't for me. Being entrepreneurial, right. But I wasn't sure exactly what it was that I wanted to do. And, and I explored a lot of different paths. And there came a point, and this is right in 2012. It actually, prior to that, this was in 2008. This is right when the economy tanked. I come out of school, honors graduate, and there are no jobs, right? So I'm washing dishes at a dive bar. And then from there, I was able to, kind of upgrade my life to, washing lab equipment at the CDC. And, but while I was there, I was trying to basically figure out, well, what do I do? I was study for an MBA, And ultimately, I was learning things, everything from like JavaScript and PHP. And then, I didn't know anything about money. So, I got kind of obsessed in learning different like financial strategies, and just like, I would read all these different books because I didn't have much money at the time, but I didn't really learn anything about that from my parents. So I figured, well, this would be probably something good to be good at, right? Or at least to understand. And then I ended up buying a camera because I figured this would be a nice lifetime skill to have. Like, who would want to be good at just taking pictures? And this started as a hobby. So for me, my hobbies turned into like basically business ventures. So it started off as just me buying a camera, but then it led to me really starting a photography company, and then, and then a marketing company. And then that led to a video company, and so on.
Wow.
And, what started as working with, a lot in the hospitality industry, eventually as we outgrew that, it was starting to work with, larger brands and companies like Coca-Cola and Red Bull and Verizon and so on. And, I looked at, where could we make the greatest impact? And it wasn't actually for the large brands and the large corporations. It was really for a lot of like the small businesses. I could relate to other business owners and business leaders. And as I was undergoing that journey, we had an attorney that reached out to us completely, at random. We weren't marketing towards attorneys. We were working with, all sorts of different industries, like tech, financial, like legal wasn't one of them, but she'd reached out to us. She had no online presence. We ended up creating, some videos for her and marketing those videos, and her firm exploded. So we did that for another law firm, and then another one after that. And I looked at what was going on in the legal industry as it related to like marketing and advertising, and essentially saw that, for the last, let's say 15, 20 years at the time, and this is in 2012, not a whole lot had changed. So like the methods of advertising were fairly traditional, right? So what you saw in a given market was that you'd have the top Goliath firms. So there was like 1, 2, or 3 that had the most revenue and the most advertising dollars, investing the most in marketing, bringing in the most cases. And as a result, because they were able to bring in the most cases, they were able to put that money back into the market, into their marketing. And it wasn't very much a level playing field. It was very difficult for, smaller firms to even be successful, because you have Goliaths in every market that can literally outspend them and outsaturate them. But what we saw was that, at least as it related to like digital video and social and so on, that there was a potential area where you could be more competitive and more strategic. And, the costs were very different than the barriers presented by traditional advertising like TV, radio, and billboards. So we went all in on that. Our goal was like, how can we help, these great firms that were with great attorneys that just didn't happen to be great marketers and maybe not even great business owners, but, they really wanted to help people, and it was in the best interest of their communities to be able to like connect with those people, but you couldn't really hire them if you didn't know that they existed. So that was really how Crisp was born, at least on the, kind of that legal pivot. And since that time, I mean, we were 100% law firms. That's the only work that we do. And, we realized, I guess the evolution was, we started with these great videos that are almost like these movie trailers that are story driven and cinematic that, are going on, law firms' website and social and so on. And that was really like the story. And we found that if you could articulate what sets you apart, why someone should hire you, why you do what you do, you could establish this level of authenticity and connection. But right after that, we saw a major problem in the sense that, the videos were great, but if they didn't get in front of, a law firm's ideal clients, they'd be great at cocktail parties, but they wouldn't necessarily help to drive more new business. So we realized we had to get good at the marketing side, and we kind of expanded from the video company to the video marketing company. But then, you see another barrier, and we found that, you could have a great video and great marketing, but if you don't know how to answer the phones properly, if the intake's not right, if the culture is wrong, if the leadership isn't strong, if there's no operations, all those different things, the ROI of the marketing was largely dependent upon what was going on internal within that firm, and oftentimes would become a bottleneck based on the capabilities and the capacity of the leader. So that's kind of what we expand into the coaching. So it's like video to marketing to coaching, which always seemed like a natural progression to me, but people like this. I think, at least companies within the legal industry like this a lot more when we were just a video company. I got invited to less parties as we kind of went through this evolution.
Yeah, as soon as you become a competitor, people stop inviting you to things. That's for sure. And that's, it's strange how that works. You said something interesting about how you went to pre-med. You were going to go to medical school. And I think a lot of people fall into that category where they feel like society tells us that this is what success is. And we don't push a lot about entrepreneurship. You hear this about don't be a workaholic. Nobody's ever died wishing that they worked more. But yet we celebrate actors and celebrities who are working all the time. We celebrate when the NFL plays on Thanksgiving. We celebrate when the NBA plays on Christmas Day. But if you want to do something for your family and your business, all of a sudden you're this bad guy. Where do you think that comes from?
You know, it's interesting. I think that I agree with you in the sense that, like, there's, while sometimes I think work ethic or even, in terms of growth can be demonized in some ways, I think what people really do admire is ultimately the end result, which is oftentimes a byproduct of those very things. So
Right.
I think that's why it's so rare as well, because it's such an uphill climb. You have to not only, change your environment, you have a lot of people that are critical along the way. I mean, basically what you're doing is you're becoming the outlier, right? Like, to really become successful in anything, you're the outlier, which means you're not doing what's as prescribed. You're not kind of in that homeostasis where, if you don't, if you kind of stay within the boundaries of, like, let's say mediocrity, people kind of leave you alone, right? That's like acceptable. As soon as you start
Yeah.
doing like late nights, early mornings, all this stuff, people are like, well, why are you doing that? Or like, someone doesn't agree with it, or, whatever it is, that I think you start to hear that criticism, which is tough, because at the time at which you start doing those things, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you're taking a lot of risk, let's say you're building a business, you don't know the outcome. You already have doubts, you already have uncertainty. And on top of that, you're getting criticism. So I think that's why it's so difficult to overcome those barriers.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because mediocrity loves company, man. It's amazing how when you're mediocre, nobody really says anything to you, nobody criticizes you, nobody says anything negative to you. As soon as you step out, it's like you're challenging that person. You're challenging them without even saying anything to them. So, you talked a lot about kind of like this media conglomerate business that you have. I mean, best-selling author of a book, you have your own podcast, you do videos, you do coaching. Like, what excites you the most about your business? What gets you up every day?
Well, and this is going to potentially sound like cliche or cheesy, because I know what it sounded like to me when I would hear what I'm about to say. But I think the most exciting thing to me, I mean, one, it's impact for sure, right? I think there comes a point where, at first there perhaps is a motivation to either prove somebody wrong. And I think, as you kind of evolve, you care less about that, and you're doing things more so because they align with, like, your purpose and the impact you want to make. So being able to help people is very important. I'm also just very, like, growth driven in general. I think that in itself, like, it's exciting to make progress. It's exciting to evolve. It's exciting to, the thing that's driving me, and this is kind of at the core of really everything we do at this point, is that I believe that, like, success is really about helping others win and helping others succeed. And that's everyone around you. It's your team members, it's your clients, it's your industry, and so on. So whenever we're deciding, what do we do next, and kind of how do we kind of evolve, a lot of it is based on, well, what are the challenges or the pain points that our clients are experiencing? Right. Where can we add support? How can we help people? I mean, even things like the podcast. I mean, podcast is free, right? I mean, anyone can listen to that. And, that right. really stemmed from the idea of, like, I believe that people would be interested in hearing from market leaders and listening to, how do they make decisions? How do they, manage their teams? How, essentially, all those different aspects, because you can learn a lot of things from them. The book really stemmed from the fact of, like, just putting all of our knowledge, all the things that we learned on the marketing front, into kind of like a do-it-yourself book. And then even with the coaching, it's like, I felt that people could benefit from a supportive, collaborative community of like-minded people that are, also ambitious, and, some of the fast-growing firms in America. So I don't know. For me, that's exciting, and I think it's also when you know yourself. I guess I kind of relate to, like, I don't want to say necessarily younger Michael, but I had to experience a lot of pain as we grew, like from where it all started to where it is today. I mean, I started $500 to my name with the business, in my apartment. I didn't have anyone. I didn't have any support. I couldn't even understand the cause and effect behind different decisions. Like, I couldn't tell you what was a good business decision or a bad business decision. I was just making decisions, but, like, I wouldn't know why some people worked out, others didn't work out, why the phone would ring more, why the phone would ring less. And that it's almost like this place of misery that you're in, because you feel like you don't have control over your outcomes. And as I learn more and more, and, like, as I, everything from, like, reading to conferences and seminars to, like, mentors and so on, you almost start to see the matrix. It's like this veil has been lifted, and you go from seeing in black and white to seeing in color. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot more fun. Like, this is a lot more enjoyable when, like, you can actually understand how all these dynamics work. So, as we work with other business leaders, I see that same suffering, and maybe to a degree, this is all about, like, helping others avoid, that type of suffering.
Right.
To an extent, it's that, because that's what, would have been so helpful to me at that time. But it just comes down to just realizing that we control a lot more of this than we think. And, a lot of it is a function of just the leader itself. Like, we are the bottleneck of everything around us. Like, it's not, Susie or Chris or whoever it is, right? It's always us. It's always the leader.
At the end of the day, that's absolutely true. And we have to find people who can supplement us and get us out of the way. You know, you said something in your response that you didn't say this word, but this is the word that you said in that entire response. And it's the word give. You know, you have really developed a reputation of being a giver. As a client of yours in your coaching program, it's kind of remarkable how to what extent your company and you and your wife go to give to people. Everything you said was about giving, you know, the free book, the free podcast, all these things. What role does giving play in the life of an entrepreneur and a business person? Because there's somebody right now listening to this podcast and they're saying, how do I become this huge success? You know, you've gone from nothing to multi 8 figures, fast tracking to 9 figures in revenue. How do I become that success? I think giving is one of those keys. What would you say to that person who's you know, asking that question?
Yeah, I think it comes back to mindset, which is like this word that anybody who's with a fixed mindset doesn't want to hear, right? Because they want to hear
Right.
some tactic. They want me to say, no, you should really do this email strategy or this Facebook strategy. But no, but it truly is mindset. And what I mean by that, it's just like the mindset you have, you know, just towards the decisions that you make and towards your clients and towards your business and so on. Like I'll give you an example. So from the standpoint of, you know, when you're deciding what investments to make in your law firm, for example. There are ways, and I see most law firm owners focusing on how do we limit our exposure. If we can't put $1 in and get $1.50 back right away, we're not going to do it. And then at the same time, well, how do we essentially keep as much profit as humanly possible, right? Like wrong, like mindset, right? Like, because here's the thing, that is a very selfish mindset. It is the mindset that essentially says, how do we give the least and take the most, right? Rather than instead saying, what's going to lead to the best outcomes for our clients? What leads to the best experience for those clients who then become referral sources? How do we help our team members to succeed and grow, right? How do we help impact our community? When you make decisions from that mindset, and this is a tough thing to buy into because I would understand, you know, if anyone's listening and they, you know, let's say they're struggling, they're not in a good financial situation, hearing this type of thing, it's like, you got to give it a go to kind of reap the rewards from it. And you don't see those rewards immediately, but it is the way to go ultimately. And the other thing I'll say is just that so much of this is this belief that it's not all about today. It's not even all about you. If you can focus your goals and your purpose around helping somebody else succeed, that's what creates cash confidence. You know, every successful law firm owner that I speak with, if you were to ask them, how do I make sure I never worry about where the next case is coming from? Like, how do I make sure I never have to worry about that again? The thing that they always say, it's not even a marketing answer. It's always from the standpoint of, if you're helping your clients succeed at the highest level, you're helping them get the best outcomes. And sometimes the best outcome isn't even the case result. Sometimes it's just literally the experience they have with you. You do that every single time. Your team is consistent every single time. Then, you know, you start to build a reputation, right? Reputation precedes revenue. You know, you now have established this level of trust. People like you, you know, as you're marketing, people know you, all these different things start to happen. And then before you know it, you know, your clients are referring to you, other lawyers are referring to you, and so on, just because of the mindset you've had that it wasn't about you, it was about helping them win. And I mean this truthfully, because this is like a mindset warp that anyone who's thinking about, who's hearing this and is thinking, how do I make the most money possible? That kind of mindset is, I never see someone succeed with that, right? Because I find that if the goal is primarily money or revenue or whatever it is, that person has an end destination, meaning that whenever they get there or to some amount, they let their foot off the gas. The person who's driven by helping other people succeed, that person goes forever, right? Like that is a dangerous adversary because they're insatiable. Absolutely. You know, they could double their business, they could triple it, and they don't stop, right? They don't retire. They keep going. They want to help as many people as humanly possible. So I think, you know, bringing this all together, the mindset around giving is really around the fact that when you're making decisions in your law firm, it's not thinking about what allows us to keep, you know, maximize the profit or what allows us to invest the least in our clients. Instead, it's the exact opposite of like, how do we help support them at the highest level? You know, the example that I've given before is when we've done our conferences, you know, annually in Atlanta, you know, we do an open bar. You know, when you do an open bar for over 1,000 lawyers, that is, you know, it's not inexpensive. I mean, I think last time it was like, it was over like $170,000 to do an open bar for an hour for 1,000 lawyers. And, you know, someone asked me, they're like, what, you know, what's the ROI of that? You know, I don't know how to possibly calculate the ROI of an open bar versus a cash bar, but I'll tell you that like those details and those experiences matter, right? Like getting each of those touch points right matters. Remembering people's birthday matters, like all these different things, because you're focusing on like on them over you. And that's been a recipe. I think once I realized that, and once I finally understood that, I realized it wasn't something that just wealthy people say. I actually realized that that's how the wealthy people became wealthy.
Absolutely. And I've been to your conferences, and I can tell you one of the best parts of it is those cookies that you guys serve. I mean, I took half a dozen of those. I don't, I wanted to make sure I had my share. And it's the little things, it's giving those little things. It's kind of amazing, hearing this story. Like, you go from nothing, $500 to your name, to literally on track to do nine figures in revenue. Like, that could be overwhelming for a new entrepreneur. Like, they want to know, what were the hard points? Like, tell me what was the hardest thing you've had to overcome in this experience? And what did you learn from it that somebody can take away and say, I can do it. I can make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, if there's a person who's made mistakes, and hundreds of thousands of them, it's me. I mean, there's been so many stumbling blocks. There's been so many things that I think a lot of people from the outside never see, right? Because
Right.
when you got the highlight reel on social media or what have you, you're seeing all the good moments. You're seeing the announcements. You're seeing the things that have worked. You're seeing the awards and so on. But there's always those daily challenges, and you grow to different levels of the business. I mean, what starts out early on is this challenge around, like, how do we just meet the payroll, right? How can I hire somebody and employ them and be able to afford their salary, a salary that goes beyond even just one other person, to then you got challenges where that expands to 70, 80 plus people. And then you got, larger marketing budget. You got a lot more things in motion, all these different things. So, but those are very, very different types of challenges. I find that the problems don't go away. It just, kind of, upgrade to new problems. But I'll tell you that one of the big, like, pivotal moments that I had, I think it was in 2016. And we had decided, so we were growing from 2012, onward. We were growing at a certain pace, but I felt that, we weren't growing exponentially, right? We weren't growing,
Right.
you grow incrementally a little bit and so on. And you can do things where you'll say you invest a little more in marketing, and then you kind of go through those, incremental levels, but it's like, how do you double, or how do you triple, and how do you really, really scale impact? And we had this idea for a referral program. And it was a client referral program. And, we weren't the first one. So there's, other companies that were giving away, like, Amazon gift cards and, Apple, like, iPads and things like that. And we had this idea, and I'm like, well, what if we gave a car away? And once I got that idea in my head, I was like, all right, we got to do it. And we said, we're going to give away a Tesla Model S. And this car, I remember this thing was $77,000. I had to clear out all my savings, because I thought this was this brilliant idea. I was like, we're going to give away a Tesla. I mean, our clients, refer to us, they can win this car. And I remember driving down to the dealership, and I struck the check for the car, and I drove it back to the office. And then, like, from that point, it was the end of 2016 all the way to when we gave it away in April 2017, my eye twitched every day. Okay. So I thought what would be this huge success, right off the bat. I was like, man, we're going to get tons of referrals and everything. First month we announced this thing, we didn't get a single referral. Right. And I remember driving up to the office, because I parked the car out front, and you got, like, this reminder right in front of you. You better make this work, right? You better figure this out, because if it doesn't work, you're going to wipe yourself out. And, but I will say that ended up being one of the best things we ever did. It wasn't even so much because of the car, and ultimately the program was, was a huge success, and we gave it away at a conference the following year in April, and, and that went really well. Right. But I think the reason why that was such an important moment for me was that was the first time that I really went big. That was like the first time where, I mean, I was probably, it's like the difference between, like, you're sitting at, at a blackjack table gambling with $5 chips, and then you upgrade to gambling with $1,000 chips. Right. And it's like this moment of courage where, like, you never know how something's going to work, but I was tired of playing small. And, and doing something like that was on orders of magnitude bigger than anything we'd ever done before. Like, it was, at the time, it was the largest investment in the company. It terrified me. I mean, like I said, zeroed out all my savings over it. And to see that succeed, I think, was so important, because it built confidence to not only do that again the following year, because we did it with the first one was a Tesla Model S, second year was a Model X, but then to do it again with 3 Tesla Model 3s, and then again with 3 Tesla Model 3s and a Ferrari, and then again, you know what I mean? So we gave 9 cars away in the years that followed. It led to the confidence to write the book. It led to the confidence to host a conference and then host another conference. But I think it all stemmed from that first decision to play big. And then, once because all it takes is really courage, right? So, people want confidence. Confidence is like a byproduct of your results, right? Like, but you don't ever get that if you don't have the courage to do something that comes with a great degree of uncertainty and discomfort. I feel like sometimes people feel like comfort is a necessary to make a decision. I couldn't disagree more. I think, like, some of the most important decisions you'll make are going to be the most uncomfortable decisions you ever make, because you never know necessarily the outcome of something like that. But it's hard to ever really get there unless you start to play bigger. I've seen, and I know, Luis, you and Seth do an amazing job of this. I've seen people that are deliberating for a year over bringing in an office manager, over hiring one employee, and you guys go and hire 30 people at once, and it's like, think about, this, when you think about decision making, like the speed of those decisions versus, how sluggish it could be. So one person could spend a year making one hiring decision, while another firm owner, brings in 5 people at once, right? They make forward progress. Even if, let's say, those people don't work out, they figure that out faster, and they're able to make many more decisions before the first person has even made one decision.
Absolutely. And going back to employment, we hired 40 people in a matter of 3 weeks, and not all of them stayed, right? I mean, like 50% of them were probably gone within 6 months. But what we learned is we had to be better at hiring. We had to be, you learn so much from those experiences. I remember Tiger Woods saying that the reason he knows he's going to make a shot is because he's made so many shots before. Like, the confidence does breed more confidence. And I love how you stopped one car short of the pinnacle of car giving. You're about to give away a Rolls Royce Ghost at your next conference. So tell us a little bit about that.
I feel like we're all addicted to something, and maybe it's, I've seen people, business leaders that are addicted to maybe cortisol and like that stress they feel like they have to do that to themselves to make forward progress. Maybe that's me. I don't know. But I will say that, yes, we are giving away a Rolls Royce Ghost now. It's probably the biggest one we've done, because last year we thought we were going big with the Ferrari. But the interesting thing about this one, you want to talk about discomfort, it was when we actually bought the car. So as we know, COVID hit this year, right? You can talk about global pandemic. And I remember being at the dealership February 29th. I remember this because it was I think it was like a leap.
Oh my gosh.
And I got it then, and I parked in my garage, and then, we had this global pandemic that hits, right? And that changed things dramatically. For one, we ended up moving the conference from November this year to May of next year. But, then you're like, okay, well, was that the right decision to buy this thing? And then this happens, right? It's like we actually held off from marketing it for a long time because, you got, the world on fire and crumbling. And it's like we drive around in a Rolls Royce. We didn't know that was, in good taste or not. But I will say it's one of those things. And I think the car's getting a lot of attention, but I think if someone's listening and, let's say they think, well, I can't give a car away to my clients or whatever it is, it's less about the car. And I think it's more about doing something that, not only brings attention and gets you known and so on, but it's also something that, again, all these cars we've given away have gone to clients, right? Like the winner of the Rolls Royce Ghost, like that will go to a client. And it's not even, so it's interesting when you think about how that contest works. It's a transformation contest. People are literally documenting themselves and how they've grown and transformed and so on. And then there's going to be a public vote of other law firm owners. But you look at that and you're like, well, Mike, how are you monetizing that, right? It's not based on referrals. And the interesting thing, this comes back to the aspect of giving. It's not being directly monetized. It really isn't. There's not, a referral that comes directly out of that or anything like that. We wanted to do it because, you see a lot of people that are, kind of weighed down and maybe tired, from what 2020 has been, the business leaders are kind of, you're having to really step up as a leader, not only to your team and your family and your communities and so on. And we wanted to give people something to rally for, right? And it's like, guys, Let's get up and let's go. And I think to me, it's exciting to be a part of that conversation, but it's just more so thinking about, okay, what's going to get your clients excited? What's going to make those moments memorable? What's going to make those experiences special and so on? And then, as long as you've got, let's say, the internal aspects of your business together, like especially the operational aspects of it, everything else does fall into place. Everything else does work out. I really, it's interesting. When you look at 2 different stories, like the person who, how often do you hear about the person who was giving and helping and support their clients and communities and their family and their team members? That person, things didn't work out for them, versus the one that was literally putting all the money back into their pocket, buying all sorts of stupid shit, like cars and houses and whatever it is. And instead of reinvesting it into their people and so on. And like, it's always the former that succeeds, not the latter, right?
Of course.
It's because of the difference in mindsets.
Yeah. And you keep saying that word mindset. And I think it really does come down to mindset. And, when you think about building a business, you get a lot of criticism, and we've talked off camera about criticism. I've sent you personal text messages. Hey, how do you deal with this situation? Because people are so critical of you in every aspect, not just you, but like any entrepreneur. What would you tell an entrepreneur, a law firm owner, small guy who's scared of playing big because of the criticism they're going to get, the competition? Like, what would you tell that person? What's the right mindset?
I think there's two sides to it, because there's a difference between really, like feedback where if, let's say like American Idol and you're a terrible singer and people are, saying, well, hey, maybe this isn't for you. I think that can be very like, that's candor, right?
Right.
Versus somebody, criticizing you because they're envious or what have you. I mean, or, let's say you're growing your firm. And as it turns out, a lot of the social circles you used to be a part of, those people, let's say, may not, invite you as much, and they may not be as supportive of you because guess what? You're pulling a lot of business away from them, right? Maybe as a result, you're making things more difficult for them because you've now built a large organization. You're more competitive. Maybe you have less things in common, but as we've said, it's you don't want to necessarily take criticism from anyone that you wouldn't go to for advice. And I find that a lot of like criticism and a lot of these things, it comes with the territory. I think it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to put yourself on like a public stage and really just to do anything, like we were talking about even at the start of the podcast that, if you didn't want any criticism, just like do nothing, say nothing, be nothing,
Right.
just fall in line, like just, be quiet, don't ruffle anyone's feathers and so on. If we stayed the video company at conferences, everybody loved us. There weren't really any other legal video companies and we weren't stepping
Right.
on anyone's toes and anything like that. Everyone was fine. And what's interesting is I think a lot of growth doesn't necessarily come as a result of, well, we want to beat this other organization. We want, like what have you. A lot of it just stems from the fact that we talk, back to like giving. It's, we want to support our clients at a higher level. That's what we're focusing on. And, and if it grows, it expands in this capacity, what have you, it's not ever about any competitor. It's really more so about how do we help our clients. And it's also kind of the notion around competition. I find that, you can have this competitive mindset where, you view that essentially like if someone else or another firm gets one case, that's one less case for you. But I've found generally that if you instead have a collaborative mindset, that in itself is what leads to the most growth. Like you can support other law firm owners, you can refer them cases, they can refer you cases as well. And then the most important thing is, what we're really in competition with is ourselves. There is no one, and I'm not truly mean this, there's no one in your market that could do more damage to you than yourself, and the most successful firm owners when I speak with, and I'm like, what would it take to put you out of business, to take you out? Like these guys at the top, these market leaders, and they're like, it'd be them, right? Like they'd have to make some serious mistakes, serious errors of judgment, whatever it is, but they never mention competition because
Right.
you don't control that. You control what you do. You control your effort. You control what's going on in your organization, how you treat your clients, all these different things. And, when you focus on that, everything else, falls in place. But coming back to criticism, at first, I would say that, it pained me. I'd hear this stuff and you'd hear these things that aren't true and so on. And, it really bothered my wife too, because she'd hear the stuff and like, she's like, well, how could they say that? That's not true. Like you really helped this person or whatever it is. And I would start to question myself. I'm like, did I do this person wrong somehow? Like I would, really, I'd start, like just really thinking about this stuff. And in the end, what I realized was that, okay, I wasn't getting any criticism when we were, $500 back in 2012 in my apartment. Every year as we grew, you're getting more noise and you're hearing more and more criticism. But that's just a byproduct, I think, of the fact that, you're putting yourself out there and you're going to make some people uncomfortable because guess what? I mean, you're growing and innovating. But I think John Morgan mentioned this a while back. It's like when he comes into a market, everyone gets so nervous. Everyone's like, oh man, like John Morgan's coming in. And he's like, there's whole CLEs dedicated to what you should do if John Morgan comes into your market. And he's like, look, I'll shortcut this thing for you. And he's so right when he says this, whether you like him or, or don't like him. He says like, just here's the solution. Just get better, just elevate your own organization, elevate yourself as a leader, all those different things. And people, it's vice versa. I think about this all the time. I think, true competitors, like people who love the sport of competition, who love making a great impact, they love a worthy adversary because that's what forces you to level up your own game. Competition is good for communities. It's good for the public and so on. It's what leads to innovation. So from that standpoint, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, you need competition because competition actually makes a better experience for the client. If you really are about the client experience, imagine somebody coming in and providing a better client experience. You're going to then have to perform at a higher level. So competition is really good for the client. Now, you mentioned your wife, and it's interesting because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who start, many law firm owners, believe it or not, start with their wife being their first office manager, maybe their own legal assistant. Your wife is the COO of your business, a multi 8-figure business. She manages 80 plus, maybe 100 employees. Tell me about that experience, and what would you tell someone a law firm owner or any business owner who is thinking about having their wife work with them?
Well, there's two ways to answer this, because there's like the wife conversation, and then there's like the kind of like your second in command conversation. So on the second in command side, I would say play to your strengths. You know, I'm good at very few things, like very, very, very few things. And I realized that way. I mean, when my wife came on board, I think it was back in 2014. I mean, culture was a mess. We didn't have any processes. Like, it was just, I mean, I was almost like reluctant to get out of bed every morning, because I was thinking, what fire like lies before me today, right? Like, it just all because it was problem after problem after problem. And you know, she came in, and you know, she not only created the processes and all these different systems and functions. She's very operationally minded, but it's just also the most important thing is she freed me up from having to think or worry about any of that stuff, and I was able to focus on my strengths. When you think about long-term strategy, you know, playing the role of a visionary, playing the role of, like, you know, everything from sales and marketing and so on. That's how the whole thing really scaled. That I was no longer trying to do everything. I was just focusing on the very few things that I was good at, and then hiring around me. Now, the conversation on wife, I'm a firm believer that our choice of spouse is one of the single most important decisions we will ever make in our lives. And what I mean is just that either this person's going to take it to new heights, or they're going to be the greatest anchor that will prevent you from ever achieving anything you ever want to do. So I make that decision carefully. And I will say that, you know, what's worked well for us, especially like, you know, in the business and so on, is that we have two very distinct lanes, you know, and she's, you know, she manages really the back of house of the organization. And I focus largely on a lot of the aspects of the front of the house, but you know, we generally don't interface as much on a day-to-day basis. She's got, you know, her departments and team members that she manages, and vice versa. And then focusing on, I mean, she, at the same time, the things that she, you know, loves to do, like, are things that, you know, are not my strengths, and vice versa. The things that are not her strengths, that she, let's say, just does not enjoy doing, never wants to do, I love to do. So it's, you know, it's finding this, like, you know, this balance of focusing on strengths themselves. But, you know, overall it's worked well. I'll say that it's good to have somebody like that that's in your corner, who's like with you. Of course, I think that when you bring your spouse to the office, it's like dog years, you know, in relationship years, you know, because it's not, you know, you're together when you're at work, you're together when you're at home. So it really does test a relationship. So I'd say it's not for everyone, but if you have established like kind of those boundaries or guardrails, if you will, and like kind of clear definings of like accountabilities of really who does what and so on, it could work really well with the right person.
Yeah, I think the key word that you said is boundaries. I mean, without the boundaries, you're going to be stepping on each other's toes, and that obviously is not a good recipe for any relationship, whether you're married to them or it's just a business relationship. You want to make sure you have good boundaries. Now, I know that for me, there's been a lot of mentors in my life that have helped me, you know, progress, and that's been the case in my experience with a lot of very successful people. They have mentors. I remember somebody recently told me that the issue with people getting to the next level is really nothing to do with money or access or anything like that. It has everything to do with mentors, the mentors they find in their life. What was a mentor of yours that really, you know, was a catalyst for you, and what did you learn from them that really took you to the next level?
Yeah. And I think you know this person, but I will say that, you know, what's interesting, one of my regrets actually is that I didn't really bring on a mentor until much later in my business career. If I could go back, you know, I would have brought one on right from the onset and sooner. And I advocate that if you don't have some sort of mentor, a mentor could be anyone. It could be, you know, another business owner that you respect that's kind of already been to where you want to go and so on. I mean, it really could be anything. But with this person, this was somebody that came from similar background to mine, much older than me, but had kind of been there, done that. I've seen many of the pitfalls that I was experiencing. He's someone that scaled his organization, came in as like the lowest paid employee and had grown it to, you know, $100 million. And I think the more important aspect, you know, also family, you know, very much focused on his family and so on. So for me, I think a lot of the lessons really came from just realizing and understanding that, you know, you don't know what you don't know. I think there's a lot of blind spots that many of us don't see. I think it's almost like the audacity that some of us have to believe that we know how to get to a place that we ourselves have never been. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's really basically what leadership is, right? I mean, you're guiding people down, you know, a journey to a destination that maybe in many cases you've never even been to yourself. And I think in order to do that, you have to have the right people around you. You know, you have to have people that have done it before, that can share those experiences, you know, and even in different areas, in different facets of business. I mean, there's people who are very operationally minded, Luis, like yourself. There's people that are, you know, let's say they're very much focused on, you know, marketing strategies. There's ones focused on culture and hiring and so on. So, I think it's just having the humility to reach out and ask for help and to take that help. The most successful people I know are the ones who ask the most questions, ask for the most help, and take the most notes. Without a doubt.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Now, there's someone right now listening to this and they're saying, how do I start a business from scratch like you did? How do I lead it to high growth? I have goals and dreams. You mentioned, not to have a destination, but they have goals and dreams for their life. What would you tell that person who wants to start that business from scratch?
Well, I would first say that it's one of the most important decisions you can make is to really know if kind of knowing oneself. Gino Wickman, who wrote the book Traction, he has another book that he released recently. It's called Entrepreneurial Leap. And it's knowing if you are the visionary, if you're, let's say an integrator, if you are let's say the business leader, right? Or meaning if you're, let's say if that's what you're cut out for, because there's a lot of other things that I think people can do that lead very happy lives that don't involve taking the tremendous amount of risk and stress and everything that comes with starting a business that, maybe it sounds good on paper, but then when you're in the weeds of it, I mean, we see this with attorneys all the time. We see a lot of amazing trial lawyers that love being in the courtroom that decide they want to be the CEO and it's just misery. Right. They don't enjoy it. They want to be in the courtroom, and one of the best things that they could do is find a great operator, right? Just that. So you could focus on the things that you enjoy, that you're not trying to do this square peg into a round hole. I think if someone's thinking about starting their own business, it's one of those things where it's never you're never doing a SWOT analysis. You're not doing list of pros and cons. It's just the way you do things. You don't have to convince yourself. If we go back to my, experience, taking the MCAT and pre-med and everything like that, I found, and looking back at this now, that I had to work probably at least twice as hard as, all of my peers to get the same results. I mean, I made good grades, but I was studying twice as long as these guys were and everything like that. And it's, when you're kind of working against yourself, when you're not working to your strengths, that's what the road is. It's not to say you can't be successful, but there could be a better path for you that kind of is more aligned with the things that you love, the things that bring you energy, the things that you could be really the best at. Whereas, when I was starting a business, don't get me wrong, that comes with, its own challenges and, adversities and so on. But I have never once ever in my life ever felt that I was in the wrong role. Ever. No matter how bad it is, no matter how many problems are, go on, I always feel like, Bruce Willis on the, in Armageddon on the asteroid where I'm like, man, this is what I got to be doing. I got to be drilling, into this asteroid and putting the nuke in. It always feels right. It didn't require a lot of convincing. So I would just make sure that before committing yourself to something like that, not only do you understand what that is, but that you just kind of know yourself and know your strengths, because you can avoid a lot of pain and misery and just, finding that right role for yourself and then hiring around yourself. You could still own the business and have a great CEO and a COO and so on, and just focus on the things that you enjoy doing, that you don't have to be the guy or, the girl or what have you. And I think there's a level of just humility and putting ego to the side that can lead to just much greater fulfillment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's so funny when you see that happen, where people are stepping into roles that they think that they should do, and really they just need to step out of the way and just keep operating the business and so forth, and just be in their passion. So, well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a real treat having you on. And we've been talking to Michael Mogill, the owner of Crisp Video. He also runs a coaching company, Crisp X, that helps people elevate their businesses. I know that you've told us before you want to have a $1 billion impact, 1,000 law firms with at least a $1 million impact in revenue per year, which is a humongous goal. And I know you're going to be able to accomplish it just with what you've done in the last 8 years. So where can people find you if they want more information about your coaching program, your videos, your podcast, your book?
Man, so I'll throw out a lot of websites, but I would say with the book, and with the podcast, you could just go to gamechangingattorney.com. The book's also on Amazon and Audible and so on. Podcasts on iTunes and Spotify. Our website is crispvideo.com. You can go straight to the coaching at crispcoach.com. And then we recently launched a website for me. We didn't even, announce this publicly yet, because I was a little, I'm still even uncomfortable with some of this stuff. And it's just my name, michaelmogill.com. And, you can learn more there. But I would say that if there's anything I could ever do to help anyone or support anyone, more than happy to. You don't have to become a client. It's not, it doesn't come with a price tag. Just literally, happy to do it. And I'll say I just genuinely enjoy this stuff. I think every conversation, at least I know you're the same way. Every conversation you have with somebody, whether it's even at work or outside of work, it's something to do with the business, something to do with innovation, something to do with ideas and creativity and strategy. So it just, when you're doing that and that's what you spend the bulk of your time doing, it's, I think it just leads to a lot more happiness.
Awesome stuff. So worst case scenario, if you didn't get all those websites, michaelmogill.com, you can find the media conglomerate, international best-selling author of The Game-Changing Attorney. There you have it, guys. From nothing to 8 figures, on his way to 9 figures. Michael did it. You can do it too. Guts, courage, and hard work is what it takes. And remember, if you love this episode, be sure to subscribe and never miss a show. You've been listening to The Guts and Glory Show.
You've been listening to The Guts and Glory Show with Luis Scott. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to share. For more information on this episode, please see the show notes at www.gutsandgloryshow.com. And join us next time as we talk to another leader in business that had the guts to overcome all odds for the glory of success.